It's box seat time. Hi everyone. This man and I have put some makeup on. That means you're with us for the next hour. We've got plenty of information for you. Michael, great night at the park on Friday night and another beauty coming up this week. A very good evening to you.
Evening, Greg. Hope you had a good Wednesday, everybody. Lots of makeup, by the way. What a great time of the year it is for harness racing, Greg, because the galloping slows down and therefore harness racing can run the table for the next 6 weeks through to the duels. Cool meeting last week. Really good meeting this Friday, and some questions coming out of last week because some of the favourites got beaten and about how that will affect the markets for this week. But for all those questions, the one thing I saw last week that made me go, wow, was Sunday's Sun, because the Anzac Cup all of a sudden just changed the way I view, and maybe you at home too, our open class trotting crop.
Yep, let's go and have a look at what we've got on the show for you. We've got the Dun & Son, that'll be RJ and JR and their win with Sunday's Sun. We'll build into the Roe Cup. We've got a whole lot of stuff around 4-year-olds, Taylor Mile into the Messenger, of course. The 2-year-old fillies get their chance last week and again this week. The Victorian Oaks has been won by a Kiwi again, Ballamontana. Diamonds Day, we'll wrap that up and talk about the excitement machine that is You May Collect and a whole lot more. But the HR Fiskins and Son Anzac Cup at Group 1 level. Well, this horse launched down the back, Sunday's Sun, and burst away at the top of the straight.
Lines up by 2 Le Mans, 2 lengths away, Speeding Spur. Down the outside, Majestic Man, but Sunday's Sun, John Dunn drives him away. He's 3 in front over Le Mans. Majestic Man working home well. Sunday's Sun, and very impressive. Second Le Mans, Majestic Man.
Yeah, terrific performance by him. He really has strengthened up as a 4-year-old, and something new for the Dunn father and son combination. A Group 1 trotting success, and joining us on the line is none other than Robert Dunn. Thanks so much for your time, Robert, and congratulations again. A terrific performance by your horse.
Yeah, thanks very much, Greg and Mike. It was. We were really thrilled with that run. It was really sort of something he's threatened all season, but when you can put it all together, he's certainly an exciting horse.
Robert, we saw back as a 3-year-old on Cup Day when he lost a lot of ground and was able to win that the talent was always there, but it's obviously taken a bit of ironing out.
It has really, Greg. Like even from early days as a 2-year-old, I remember one day at Rangiora, he was in front by about 10 lengths, and there was a cloud that sort of half covered the sun, and he trotted into the cloud by 10, and then when he saw the sun coming across the track, the darkness of the light just upset him and blew him away, and that's what happened in a lot of his starts. Lots of times he had races won, and then for no reason he'd just jump out of his gear. But I think, as you said, that Cup Day performance was a race that you sort of say, well, this horse has got some ability, and if we can get it all put together on the day, he's going to certainly be a horse, for the future.
Robert, where does it sit? All the great races you won with the Master, of course, New Zealand Cup with Mainland Banner. To win a Group 1 trotting race, your first, where does that sort of rate?
Yeah, well, it's right up there, really, Greg, because we've never been known for trotting trainers, really, but lately we have had a lot of trotters come into the stable. Early days I had a horse called Alabama Wiz, was a real star trotter, and then I had Lennon the next year, but we lost him. He was sold to Australia, and we thought at the time that he was going to be another star trotter, which he turned out to be. But over the years I haven't had, I've won sprinkled through the team, but just in the last 3-4 years since we've been at the beach, and the trotters have been coming through the gate thick and fast, and we've got some really nice trotters. So to win one, we won't say so early in our sort of, training, sort of going for trotters now as well as paces, it's exciting, really.
Robert, congratulations. How much harder do you find it to train trotters than the paces?
Well, to tell you the truth, Mick, in the early days it was a lot harder, but these days they're just so natural. I mean, when I first started training, I remember I had a great, a really smart trotter called JR's Pride, and he wore 28 ounces on each foot just to keep him trotting. And, you came across a lot of horses in those days that were a bit like that, but I remember Scotch Tail was another star that I didn't have, of course, Slim Diamond, but he had 3 shoes welded into each other. Those days are really gone now, so they're a lot more natural. And basically when you go to the sales now, you buy a trotting bred horse, you expect it to go out and trot. And so, we've had a good record over the last 3 or 4 years of doing that, Mick, and we just buy them for breeding on type. And, the results have been coming along, nicely. So it has changed now from the earlier days, although this horse has been probably harder than most.
Robert, we've seen some good 4-year-olds contest Rowe Cups over the years. It's not an easy thing to do. Mon Bay won one, but Ingheim failed in it last year. Is this horse strong enough to overcome the unruly on Friday night?
Well, I think he is, only because he's done exceptionally well this week. You know, he really has. After the race, he licked his bowl out, which they always say is a great sign. He hasn't done anything wrong this week to say that he's jaded at all. We're going to go, Johnny's up here now, and we're going to head away shortly and train him. And he just looks as bright as a button. And I think the key to it, that he just seems to be an outstanding stayer. So because of that reason alone, we know he's got the speed. And the manners are sort of getting around now quite nicely, and because I think his stamina is there, and I think he's proved that. Cup day, he just had, I think a 3-year-old trot last year in Auckland late in the season was outstanding performance. He lost about 150 that night and ran second. He went outstanding, and he's done it, 2 or 3 occasions where he's shown that he is a terrific star, as well as having high speed. And the other thing, he just wants to be a horse. He wants to be a racehorse because he just enjoys being out there now.
Robert, this North Island stable you've had, which a lot of people have started satellite stables, no one's ever successfully had one. What are the numbers split? How many horses do you tend to have in the North Island? And with the stakes increases now at Alexandra Park, are you here to stay?
Yeah, definitely here to stay, Mick. And we knew it in the long haul, not the short haul, because you always run into problems when you try and do this, and we have, we've had a bit of virus problem up here. It's just, I think, the humidity difference to Christchurch. We don't get we're near the same viruses down home. And it's made it hard because lots of times we had horses ready, getting ready for big races or just races themselves, and we've had to actually, pull up stumps on them. And in some cases, I've actually sent them back to Christchurch, and we've got them back there, bled them, and gave them 2 or 3 weeks out, and they've come back and virtually winning races straight away again. So it just seems to be a little bit of a difference in the climates between the 2 islands. So we've just had to try and work our way through that. But no, we're here for the long haul. We always knew estate money was going to go up, and I said to Johnny 3 or 4 years ago, this is the place to be able to have a split team. And because I've got, a situation which is tricky, I'm very lucky. I've got Reece Fensom up here who runs the show up here in Auckland with me, and Reece is outstanding. And then down home and then getting on to Sunday Sun, we've got lots of, Johnny's father-in-law, Craig Evans. He's been a big part of Sunday Sun, and so has Ross Houghton as well. So we've got super staff down there, and now Phil Burrows has joined the team, and some young lads and girls that are there as well, all good horsemen. So, and of course Johnny and Jen. So you've got to have that situation where you've got the staff to be able to do this, Mick, and I'm very fortunate we have.
Bonnie Highlander, you've also got on the Rowe Cup. You must have been delighted with her last week.
Absolutely. She was talking about the virus. She won the breeders up here, Greg, and then like that night she was so sick she didn't touch her feet, and she had temperature of 40. So she must have been. We didn't realise that she had a lung infection, which she transpired, and even possibly raced with a bit of a temperature. We knew that she gave no signs before the race, but certainly afterwards she did. And she was crook for about 4 weeks, so it was a mighty effort for her to actually turn herself around after being sick for 4 weeks, and then 3 weeks later we were able to work her between that period, but just very lightly, and then within 3 weeks she's turned herself around and just come up short. But she's a really exciting horse. I think she'll be a great stayer too, as long as she relaxes. But her key to, she's such a beautiful gaited horse, and she's got wonderful speed, Greg. So excited for the Newmans. And the Clark, so looking forward to seeing her go round too.
Okay, that's the Rowe Cup. Just quickly before you go, Robert, Henry Hubert takes his place in the Messenger. What did you make of him last week?
Disappointed, but it didn't suit him. He got off balance early. They went hard early, and Johnny was trying to hold the trail, which he did, but it just got off balance, and he regained it again. He's not quite as good yet Auckland way around, and we knew that. But we're here for leading into the end of the Millions, of course, in the Auckland Cup later in the season. So, and I know it'll be stronger in 6 months' time, but I can tell the punters, we're going to add spreaders on, put the spreaders back on this week, Greg, and over 2.7 he'll be a lot better horse. He got off balance again in the last turn and never recovered, and he was struggling well. He wasn't disappointing, but the gate sort of got him the speed of the race. It was fast and slow, then fast. It just didn't suit him, so we'll be adding the spreaders. Obviously going back from the wide draw, and I'm sure he's going to be a different horse this week.
Hey, thanks so much for your time. Congratulations again on that Group 1 success last week. We look forward to seeing you at the park on Friday night.
Yep, thank you very, very much. Thanks, boys. See you, Nick.
That's Robert Dunn, class trainer, as we know, and wonderful effort by he and John to get Sunday's Sun home. And he's a realistic winning chance in the Rowe Cup. Market's out. Let's have a look and see where he sits.
He's too short, Greg, for what he is, because he still had a gallop after the line there. I don't trust him, but gee, there's a lot to love about him. He's just like freakishly talented, but this is a very, very good Rowe Cup. We've had a lot of Rowe Cups in the last 2 decades which have had short-priced favourites, but this is a genuine race where you could make a case for 10 of these winning, and you're talking about Group 1 horses. Majestic Man, very unlucky last week, $4. Again, that's too short, he'll probably bounce out more. Massive Metro blew the Mobile last week. I think the 2 miles suits, the stands are concerned. Temporales won the race before. Sunday's Sun can clearly win, but I can't take $4 coming from last. Le Mans can win, Speeding Spur can win. There's just Marcula can clearly win. There's just a fantastic field. It's what you hope for.
Here was the start last week, and obviously Massive Metro. Now, I asked Todd about this. He said, look, he just got a bit rocky, and he's actually not worried about the stand this week. He's pretty confident that, and he's fine most of the time, but he did say that he sort of got up the track a wee bit even after the gallop. He didn't quite feel as sharp, but he believes he will be, and prior to that gallop there, he was in sublime form, as we know.
Look, he can win. As I said, you can make a case for 10 of them, Greg. The first 4 horses home here, why not make a case for all of them? The Neon horses, both a touch unlucky, so... Interesting story came out this morning, obviously Speeding Spur, who I think everybody who loves a good horse loves Speeding Spur, because he's never been the most talented horse, but he tries so hard. He's won 9 Group 1s. Greg, this is his finale. He tries to defend his title on Friday night. Then he's going to head to North America. Now, initially, I'll tell you the truth. When I heard this story, I thought, why are they sending him to North America? He's done enough, the old bugger. Just leave him here to retire to stud. But it's actually not what it sounds like. He's heading to North America for a 6-month campaign type thing. He's going to Marcus Melander, who's the son of Stefan Melander, outstanding trotting training family. And Andrew Grierson for Woodland Star and I had a long conversation about it yesterday. He doesn't believe the horse will be that commercial with his current record standing at stud. And when you look at the Majestic Sons and what they're doing, a lot of people are going to go, well, how many mares will he get? I would say he might get 80 mares or 100 mares at 2,500. So I keep thinking he's an old horse, Speeding Spur, but he's only 7 and he's only had 55 starts. So Greg, they'll send him up there. They've staked him for the Maple Leaf Trot and a bunch of good races, and they expect to get the invitation, the Australasian invitation, to the International Trot at Yonkers on October the 12th. $1 million. So you go up there, he's probably going to race, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 times. It won't do him any harm. And it's not like an older gelding who's been sold up there and he's going to race 50 or 60 times and end up in a claimer. That's not what's happening. He's going there to race at the highest level with the best care, and then he's coming home next year to go to stud. So what they're trying to do is embellish his career in a similar sort of vein to what Lazarus was doing without being sold. So they're going to restructure the ownership. A lot of the same owners are going to stay in the horse. I've got no issue with it as it stands now. When I initially heard the rumours he'd been sold to the US, I was like, why would you do that? But they're not true. The horse is coming home. He'll stand somewhere in Australasia next year. The bottom line is this, Greg. He's a racehorse and he's a valuable commodity, and they are trying to maximise that commodity. So as I said, he's not being sold. He's going to come home. He's going for a late life career change for 6 months to try and become a better horse than he was. He'll probably go 53 at the Meadowlands.
Yep.
So I've got no issue with it, and I wish him the best of luck up there. If he wins on Friday night, he'll win Trotter of the Year. Probably the same thing applies to maybe Marcula, maybe Massive Metro, and even bizarrely Sunday's Sun. So there's a lot more at stake than just
the Rowe Cup title. Yeah, exactly. So let's hear from the drivers just in behind our winner, Sunday's Sun. That was a pretty good effort at defending his title there.
Yeah, no, he's gone good. Trotted pretty good, so very happy. Yeah.
Talk us through the run, and look, he kept on finding himself in the running line, dropped back into the 1-1. Did you think he could get home?
Yeah, I think, that run's going to do him good, but he was travelling good, but then John come round and he seemed to be cruising, so, but, he never lied down in the run home. He was making ground, so, no, very happy with him.
Brady's in with the big boys now, and he's really standing up.
Yeah, that's probably his best run of his career. Greg, we're over the moon with him, but just got in a few traffic issues, which is probably more so my fault than the horses. He just didn't quite trot as good as what he has been up here in the past, but there's a hell of a lot more pressure on tonight, so he's definitely stepped up, and we're looking forward to the up-and-coming races.
Well, he's gone great again.
Yeah, he ran home not too bad, Greg. He pulled a little bit in the middle stages. We were probably a little bit concerned that he did that, but he was probably a little bit fresh tonight back in the field. He's raced in front, his last few starts, so whether that had a factor, I'm not sure, but all being equal, we're pretty happy.
Yeah, and that'll top him off nicely for next week?
Should do, mate. He sort of had a similar run last year and into the 2 mile race, so I think it'll be right up his alley.
Paul, tell me your thoughts around Ronald J and, of course, Abibi Inter.
Ronald J, he did a wee bit of work early to lead and just got held up a little bit just around the bend there. Probably cost him finishing a bit closer. He was never going to win it, but he went on a sort of race.
And Abibi Inter actually found the line really nicely.
Yes, he just over-raced a bit early through the journey, Blair said, just pulled a bit too hard. So he was actually hitting the sulky with his foot, which probably wouldn't help, make him get a bit keen. So we'll just might need a little bit longer cart next week if he's going to get keen like that.
Yeah, but after 2 runs in this time in, he should strip pretty fit for next week.
Should do, yeah, and generally, his last few starts from a stand, he's been a good beginner, so, that's a good asset in a standing start race.
Let's get into the Taylor Mile, key lead-up race, of course, to the Messenger. Look, the record was held by Excuse Me, of course, because this is the first time, basically, we've been back to a mile in quite some time. Gate speed from Spankham, as we saw in the Miracle Mile, and once he worked to the lead, Michael, all the predictions about Turn It Up taking over from him, not eventuating, went out the window.
Mark Purdon came out and said on every website that matters that this is what's going to happen. He said Spankham's going to lead, I won't be attacking, and therefore the market completely flipped on its head. That's why the media is important to you. That's why it's important that we have a racing media in this country, because it helps you back winners and creates interest. He said this was going to happen, it happened, and if you didn't back Spankham, well, that's your choice. You could make a case that Turn It Up might beat him. But the bottom line was you were handballed that one. Simple as that. And Turn It Up was fantastic in running second. There was a bit of comment around that the race was boring. Well, some races are going to be boring if the 2 best horses control the race from the front. And every race isn't going to be fireworks. The game's about winning money. And if Mark Purdon's comments don't mean much to you and you don't want to bet, well, that's fine. But I have never seen a Group 1 winner handball to punters better than that, Greg, at 3.1.
Turn It Up, Chase Alton, Hale Christian all ran home in 54.4, so there was a bit of merit in those in behind as well. Going forward to the Messenger, though.
Same barrier draws.
Well, this will be interesting. Does Spankham go to the lead here? And
you know what we'll do? We'll find out. We'll go find out. We'll ring Mark and we'll ring Nat and we'll ask them, and it'll be on HRNZ's new website, which looks good. It'll be on the Herald, because we still run racing stories, and it will be on Trackside on Thursday or Friday.
Now, the key for Chase Auckland here is he needs significant money to get in the duel, so I can't see him going back at the start for Tony Hurley.
I don't think many of them need to go back at the start. I think they'll just fall into the spots they fall into. The question mark will be, will Spankham stay in front? That is the entire question mark to the race, Greg. Chase Auckland's too short. Spankham will come in, Chase Auckland will go out. We will find out for you, because that's our job, and we'll give you the best indications we can, because Mark will give us the best indications we can. And Greg, everything else, all the fretting last week about the race not being exciting, well, I'm sorry, but not every race is going to be an absolute drawn-out knuckle fight.
The Woodland Stud, Group 1 it was, Caduceus Club Phillies Classic, was taken out by the second favourite in the race. Favourite was outside the leader here in Sweet On Me, but Amazing Dream. She'd shown enough improvement in her previous 2 runs, Michael, to suggest that this was possible, and then she unleashed this.
Passing lane, Sweet On Me, Amazing Dream, Sweet On Me, Amazing Dream, the 2 All-Stars fillies, they drive an Amazing Dream for the Group 1.
Took her earnings up to $80,000. 240 was a good time, 57.3 mile rate. Difference this week, Michael, of course, Sweet On Me draws inside Amazing Dream.
Initially, when I looked at that to the eye, I thought Sweet On Me was a little bit disappointing, but once I saw the time, she wasn't at all. She was fantastic. They've got a super time. The marker pegs are gold in those sort of times. She was super. She's the best filly in the country. Amazing Dream has closed the gap, finished in front of her there. I doubt the same thing will happen on Friday night, but both very, very good fillies, and I thought the third horse was good too.
Yeah, Tiffany Rose, she unfortunately cops barrier 8 this week. Be interesting to see what John Dunn actually decides at the start though, because she does have explosive speed.
I don't think it'll matter what anybody does. I think Sweet On Me will win, and I think she'll probably lead, and I think she'll just be too good for them because that was a super run last week if she backs up Greg. So there's the market, $1.18 for her. Amazing Dream was probably backable last week. I thought Sweet On Me was a certainty. So I was wrong, and maybe she'll prove me wrong again this week. Maybe these things change this time of the season, but I can't see how the 2 doesn't win.
And Little Miss Perfect's drawn to trail, so she's probably the best place chance in the race, given that she'll get a perfect run throughout.
Yep. I think there's a couple of races this week which are going to be really dependent on draws, like the Derby for the Trotters in this race, and there's a couple of races where there's going to see a lot more pressure. Whether the Messenger's one of those, I doubt, but the Rowe Cup's going to be a beauty. Greg, it's going to be a super night. We're going to be on track. Addington kicks off a bit earlier, though. That's interesting.
Yeah, 3:30.
Yeah, so a twilighty type meeting there, so you can roll in from one meeting to the other.
Yep, exciting few hours it will be on trackside, but you're with your box seat when we come back. We've got a whole lot more action out of Alexandra Park and the preview towards this Friday. Welcome back into your box seat. Let's have a look at the Group 2 sires, the key lead-up race, of course, to the Brecon Farms Trotting Derby this week. And, well, this girl returned, Michael Guerin. Tickle Me Pink. More about her in a moment, but the most significant part here was the hot favourite, Enhance Your Calm. He just threw his head in the air just before the mobile left, and you could see he was getting a bit rocky in his gait, and he lost considerable ground at the start.
Greg, not the first horse to come to Alexandra Park and gallop on debut there, but it's rare they do it in a straight line. We'll get back to him in a second. This is a big winning performance because Tickle Me Pink has sat parked, first start for 9 months, and she beats all the main players from the Derby.
Flying down the outside and Gill favour, Tickle Me Pink, out muscle, charges, Tickle Me Pink. What a return that's been. Tickle Me Pink.
Yeah, so 2:46 the overall time. Kratos led that race up. Your horse, of course, was disappointing, but the most noticeable thing about the replay there was how much ground Enhance Your Calm was making up, and the fact that he got held up probably for 100 metres, whereas if he got clear, he wouldn't have won, but he would have got very close.
Yeah, look, I'll touch on him. I think he's the best of this crop. Oscar Bonavina was back at the workouts on Tuesday, and I think he's close enough to Enhance Your Calm, but that was a massive run. The fact he galloped in a straight line suggests to me it wasn't just the right-handed thing. I've been saying this for a while. I think there's a niggle in this horse somewhere. And he's a big horse. I'm not sure whether he's fully matured and maybe he's feeling his joints somewhere. So I think he'll win this week, but I think there's a window of opportunity for other horses to beat him at the moment, and he'll get to the jewels maybe, but I wouldn't be stunned to see him come out of the jewels. The second horse was fantastic, but the winner was the story of the race. In fact, actually almost the story of the night. This horse nearly died last year. She was so sick at the Breeders' Crown. Tony Herlihy, who's not known as a trainer who works his horses super hard, Greg, and he said to us before the race, I'm not confident she'll be ready, and you couldn't be confident she could be ready. To come out and do this, she's gone up enormously in my expectations of who she is, Greg, because I thought she was one of those 2-year-olds last year who was a nice, natural 2-year-old and nice-mannered, but maybe she wouldn't go on with the job. Well, I've totally misread her. So well done to the Breckons, because they've been mature enough to take Tony's advice and say, we're going to miss the Derby. She would have been second or third favourite for the Derby this week, which would have incredibly embellished her career. And they said, no, we'll stick around for the Oaks and go to the Breeders' Crown. Good on them for doing that, Greg. Massive winning performance. She's a real player now, and that also gets her into the Jewels. So she's got a whole range of new options, which I wouldn't have considered her having just a week ago.
There were some very good runs just in behind her, so let's hear from the Beaten Brigade. Well, you'll be wrapped with that.
Yeah, super run, Greg. Yeah, couldn't be happier. First time around here. Yeah. And I'm good.
It's always worth a look round Alexandra Park first up, given that you've got the Derby, clearly a better distance for him next week.
Oh, absolutely. Like, he'll follow all day, and extra 500 metres will be right up his alley.
Paul, another really honest performance.
Yeah, no, I was pleased with him, Greg. He, he ran home, got to the line nicely.
Going forward to the Derby as well, he's one that'll appreciate the extra distance.
Yeah, I don't think it'll worry either of my two, actually. They both seem to stay quite well.
What do we put that down to?
Look, I think it's just the right-handed way, Greg. He was just, very uncoordinated when the barrier left and just wasn't sort of driving dead straight, and just got off balance. So hopefully we've got a week to iron him out.
He certainly found the line well after that.
Yes, he went great after that, but can't afford to give that start away.
You're a bit disappointed in the drive.
Oh, I was really, yeah. Unusual for me too. I'm normally out and gone, but it was just one of those things that, if she'd had a run under her belt, I certainly would have got going with a lap to go because they were only walking. And look, she's really gone good though, Greg. She's hit the line good, and I'm very pleased with her. So we'll just turn the page and look forward to the Oaks.
Yeah. She goes round in the last race on Friday night. I'll be making her the bet of the night because she did make up a heck of a lot of ground. On to the Derby, though. It's Enhance Your Camps to lose. It comes to lose in many respects. It's come up $1.38. A lot of muscle, $2.90. Same barrier he had when he won the Trotting Derby at Addington.
He's got to have a good chance now, but the odds are getting enormously different. He was $19 to win at Addington. He's $2.90 here. I agree with Mark. Right-handed was probably the main reason behind Enhance Your Car, but there's just been enough there recently to suggest you can't take $1.38. You could in the Derby 2 starts ago. You can't now because he's been beaten twice since. If he just jogs to the lead, he still could be susceptible to a lot of muscle. If he does anything wrong at all, a lot of muscle's clearly the horse to beat. And then he starts becoming favourite for 3-year-old Trotter of the Year because he's won the Hambo and the other Derby. The rest of them I can't make any case for at all. Gill Favor's got a place chance. Tricky Rick was disappointing. It was a strange race last week. There was almost a reason for every horse in the race to get beaten, apart from Kratos, who was just poor.
Yeah, you just didn't find a reason there?
I just don't think he's a leader, but I'm not going to say, oh wow, there was an excuse, because he was poor. He led in a half in 65, so he'll have a week off and he'll head to the Sale Series at Addington, which most of these horses aren't eligible for. But it's a really interesting race because Enhance Your Calm comes down and bolts in, Greg. We go, oh, we all saw that coming type thing. But $1.38, I just can't back him at those shorter odds after 2 back-to-back defeats.
Key races leading into the harness duels on the undercard included these ones. Let's have a look at the first. Jack Shadow, since going to Alexandra Park, well, he's gone from no hope to being in the duels to absolutely being in it now.
Because the stake money's so good, Greg, and he won this like a decent horse. Look, it's a horse like him, going to the duels, you say to yourself, do I want the experience of going to the duels? Because he's got no chance of winning. We know that. He's in an incredibly tough division. But you go round, you get your 3,700, I think it is, for starting, and you get yourself a bit of a thrill. So well done. Andrew Stewart has placed his horse well and won a stack of money, which is what the game's all about.
240.5, home in 57 and 28. Forget the price tag has gone that well in this undercard trot, beating Bonnie Highlander, who won the Breeders. But Tony's now starting this horse in the Roe Cup.
Which he did a couple of years ago with Temporale, who won the race as a 4-year-old. This is a very good horse on the way up. He's still a year away from being a Roe Cup winner, I would have thought. Mark Purdon drives him in the Roe Cup for his brother-in-law. Tony trained 4 trotting winners in 48 hours. So he trained this horse, of course, Tickle Me Pink, and then he trained 2 and Quinella, a 2-year-old race out of Cambridge. So well done to you, Tony. It's not an easy thing to do to train a trot, let alone 4 winners in the same weekend.
So 5 from 15 for Forget the Price Tag. Now here's Have Time. She's earned most of her money in the Sales Series races, hence she needed to do something like this to make sure she was in the duels. And this race was accentuated by the early speed battle between Olivia Rachel and a due flirt, both of those ending up dropping out, and an inquiry opened into that. But Have Time's a pretty handy sort of a filly, and she has gate speed, so she's got a fair bit in her arsenal.
She has, and she's won, as you said, those 2 Sales Series, but she's a horse with that gate speed. She could lead in a duels, and you would presume a hand up to a Bella Montana and or a Princess Tiffany. And that puts her in a place, Greg, where she can get a Group 1 placing, because obviously the Sales Series races are only listed. But look, she's a horse who's winning a lot of money and getting a pretty good record for herself.
You talk about Bella Montana. We need to go across the Tasman and have a look at her performance to win the Victorian Oaks. Barry Purdon not shy of heading to Australia when he's got the right horse, and he's obviously got the right one here. Smart drive from Zachary Butcher as well.
Smart drive, which could have got him abused in Australia. In Australia, they're just infatuated with leading. Lead. And if you have any horsemanship skills and want to hand up and you get beat, you get abused. So what Zach did is didn't rush off the gate, came off the trail round to the lead. Then when Kualoa came and attacked, he just handed the lead straight to him. Now, that just opens you up, Gregory, to so much abuse in Australia. He gets beat. For 2 years, everybody in Australia, Zach Butcher's an idiot, but he comes out and wins. And that's the biggest difference between our horse people and theirs, is predominantly virtually no driver in Australia outside Gavin Lang would have tried to pull that off, handing up on a $1.40 chance with 1,100, 1,200 to go. And that's horsemanship. So he's a wonderful young driver. Barry still has those same skills he's had for 40 years. They're not going anywhere. He was smart enough to find out where his rivals were going, Greg, to decide whether to go to this race. She's now won a Group 1 in both countries. She's by Better's Delight out of a Christian Columbia. And she's got nothing left.
And she's won nearly 300,000.
And now she has 3 cracks at Princess Tiffany over the course of the Neville final, the Oaks and the Jewels.
And don't forget, it's 2-0 at the moment.
Exactly. So if she wins one of those 3 races, she starts to really come into play for Filly of the Year, which is a big title. A lot of the Horse of the Year titles, 4-year-old trotter, that sort of stuff, probably don't matter too much going down the line.
But 3-year-old filly does.
Filly of the Year does. It's a glamour title.
Yeah.
So Princess Tiffany, I think, is the best 3-year-old filly in the country. In fact, I'm pretty darn sure she is. But
it's going to be a good battle, isn't it?
Bella Montana can beat her once more, then there's no way Princess Tiffany can beat her head-to-head for the season in New Zealand. They might both end up at the Breeders' Crown. So I like what Barry did with this horse. He raced it in an early Neville heat to give her the window of opportunity to go to Australia. And he's still one of the masters, Barry. He has a team nowhere like the size he used to have, Greg, but the horses he trains...
The quality, yeah.
Exactly. They come to the races and they just look ready. Jack's Legend from his stable has been vetted and likely to go to North America in the next couple of weeks. And look, we can't really afford to lose him out of the open class grade, but...
You can't blame them.
He's a pretty good sale.
He is.
Because I'm not sure he's going to win any bigger race or embellish himself more than a second place in a New Zealand Cup heading forward. So be a shame to see him go.
Talking about placement, what about Steve Telfer and sending Step Up, or our Step Up as she's known across there, has done a wonderful job here in New Zealand, but she's 4 from 5 now in Australia, and she's accumulated a heck of a lot of money.
And she has the Queen of the Pacific coming up, which is a major group.
She's in this
race.
week, inside second row.
Yeah, they're very smart, Stonewall Stud and Steve Telfer, at looking at Australasia for what it is. They've sent horses like C and Mac to WA, and that's one of his real skills. He's a good horseman, but he's also a very smart planner. And that's half the battle, so she's been incredibly well placed. And when she eventually goes to stud, which they will do, when buyers come out from Australia, look at the catalogue and see bang, 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 all these Australian wins.
Oh, I know her.
Exactly. I know her. Like Bella Montana, they'll go, oh, good horse, that one. And they're more likely to buy them. So if you can win with a mare or run a good time with a mare in another country, gee, it helps Greg when they go to stud.
Yeah, it does. Cullenburn, we mentioned, went to Australia, has had one run up until this, the carousel last week, and Look, he doesn't win by a big margin here, but this was 50,000. It's at Group 2 level, and I think he's in the right place now, and by winning a race like this, he won't be hard to place in the future.
Okay, so these are Ian Dobson's colours.
Yes, so he's still racing.
So he's obviously sent the horse across there. Well, again,
Exactly.
that's smart, because Cullenburn probably wasn't going to be an open class force in New Zealand. You go over there and you get your chance to race for good money most weeks against horses who just aren't that good.
Yep, time-honoured Trua Memorial was also on, and this horse now has gone back-to-back beating Ignatius, the big talk horse over there, and showing enormous speed. Now, they were talking about Ignatius potentially coming to the New Zealand Cup and onto the Inter-Dominion. This horse is potentially in the same boat.
I think he's a horse well suited by the smaller tracks at Penrith and Bankstown his last couple of starts. He's quite a nippy horse, whereas Ignatius is probably better suited to Menangle. I think the free-for-all type grade in New South Wales, when Tiger Tara's not racing and Greg's not,
It's not that strong. Yeah.
When you consider what we saw on the Taylor Mile last week with Spankham, Chase Auckland, who ran fourth in a Miracle Mile, of course, and Turn It Up, you know, our grade's just so much stronger than you have. Take, for example, AG's White Sox. Now, here's a perfect example. You send AG's White Sox to Menangle, he'll just beat most of those horses outside Tiger Tara every week. Yep. And that's the huge difference. In Australia, you have 4 major states for harness racing. You're dividing your talent pool into 4, whereas in New Zealand, the horses tend to follow each other around. So put that, you know, You May Collect. You put You May Collect in that race, he'll just bolt in, and all of a sudden, he's an open class force. So there's just the separation of depth means that each state has its hype horses, and then when they all meet, they tend to get beaten by the genuine Grand Circuit horses. That's not an insult to Elmer's Image, that's just how it tends to go.
Yeah, well, the province where You May Collect is where we'll focus off the back of this quick break. Of course, it was Diamonds Day, and there were some terrific racetrack performances. See you in a moment. Just before we get to Diamonds Day, well done to Mike Berger on Sunday, training 3 winners. He wouldn't train more than a handful now these days. Of course, had his greatest day in the sun, if you like, with Gracious Night and Fact and Non-Verba co-training those. But yeah, good effort the other day.
One of the most popular guys in Northern Harness Racing. Just everybody likes Mike, and he's got a very gentle, genial nature. Eagle Watch is now qualified for the Jewels. Now, Mike would have qualified a horse for the Jewels at least every second year, so one every 2 years. For a guy who doesn't train a big team and doesn't have a lot of expensive yearlings coming through the property anymore,
good effort.
It's a hell of an effort. And I think he's had a couple of Jewels placings. So he's a guy, every time he wins, puts a smile on my face.
Yep. The winner too, Eagle Watch, the first New Zealand winner for He's Watching. Let's go to Diamonds Day and have a look at the 2-year-old Classic, which was won by Virgil. Look, he had the run to win by more than he did, but he's now amassed 60-odd thousand in the bank, the son of Sweet Lou. And William Wallace was second to him. He had the problem at Addington Raceway where he hit the gate at his first start, but he showed what he has at the trials now on race day.
Yep, people will be keen to be buying William Wallace after this. Anytime you have those horses at this age who get close to a decent Purden Rasmussen horse, they become very viable. He's a lovely horse, William Wallace, as is Virgil, but where he sits in the pecking order of the All-Stars could be anywhere from 3 to 6, I presume.
He's a $12 chance of the 2-year-old Emerald at tab.co.nz. It's now 2 from 7, and Tim Williams did the job in the bike there. Nice effort from him. It's starting to build up a bit of a repertoire of good horses winning that race, as is the Macca Lodge Neverly R 3-year-old Southland Oaks. And pressed for time, she probably didn't have the credentials of some in this. I'm more or less talking about the Hope pair, but Tom Baggery's done a good job and John Dunn outstanding piece of reinsmanship here.
Yep, when you put him on the front end of the field, you have a lot less horses to run past.
Simple as that.
And good on Tom. I mean, most young trainers need a horse to produce something like this to get, you know, some younger owners coming in and to keep people coming through the gates. BD Kosama, who was his good trotter, has headed off to Australia, so he's found a better replacement in this filly.
Michael, this one by Sports Writer And out of the family of betters, Brigadier, who won about 9 or 10 races for Doug McLaughlin, who's had some pretty good horses over the years. So sports riders, more in Australia he's had success than perhaps here, but that'll help.
He's left a lot of good horses, sports rider, and he leaves a lot of neat horses. They're nice looking horses when they go through the sales ring. He's a stallion who, when I come across him, I look at a horse, I go, okay, that's all right. I don't mind backing a sports rider. And I think they've been relatively good buying. Some good judges have purchased sports riders at the yearling sales the last couple of years. So he's going to be around for a while. He's a serious horse. He's just had a lot more foals on the ground in Australia, therefore a lot more prominent to punters over there.
Alabar Southern Supremacy's always won by a decent horse, and this guy is. We're talking about Memphis, Tennessee, racing in the Simon colours, the colours of Necktie, who of course won the Southland Oaks at this meeting on this track. And well, Terry Schmiel got him in the right spot throughout. He was very, very strong here, and he'll take his place in the Jewels. They went 324 overall. He's 5 from 15, and he was developed by Mark Jones. Mark sold a few horses to the Schmiels over the years, and this is another one that's done the job.
And why can't he place in the Jewels? I mean, he's already beaten Jesse Duke, who is now the open favourite for the Jewels because of the withdrawal of Ultimate Sniper. The horses behind him, their Global Domination, ran 4th in a derby. So this is good enough to be Jewels-based form. I like this horse. I think he's an open class horse in the making, whether he rushes to open class as a 4-year-old or whether he works his way there. But a horse like him has lots of options. You just hope he doesn't get so high up the handicapping rating system that they are forced to sell him. Because, Greg, that's the problem with these good 3-year-olds, is they're getting up to these. I think it should be, again, I don't want to go too far into this, but I think 3-year-olds should be capped at 85 rating points. Any higher than that, Jesse Duke.
What are they capped at? Well, I thought it was about that.
Well, Jesse Duke's 93 this week.
So it might be 95, yeah.
So, and
it's still too high.
95 is basically open class.
Yeah.
You're basically racing open class horses, and I think these 3-year-olds shouldn't be able to go any higher than 85. So he's a horse I would fear would end up getting too high up the mark, and they start thinking, well, do we go to Menangle or do we do something else? In saying that, the Australian rating system has changed, and in the future won't be as advantageous to our good horses.
Well, the best example was Spankham. He went over there and raced in a C3, C4.
Well, Spankham started favourite in the Inter-Dominion final, and at his next start raced in a C3, C4 race. So the Australian system was way too much the other way, and I think the top end of our system is too much against the good 2- and 3-year-olds.
Well, Princess Tiffany, they had to nominate. The best example was, hey, we have to start in the Easter Cup if we want to go round. Well,
that's not technically true. They said that, but they could have nominated for the Derby.
They could have,
if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But the point was still there.
Yeah.
2-year-olds shouldn't get past 75. Because you say to yourself, if your best 2-year-old was racing at a 75, would it win? Not automatically. If your best 3-year-old, Jesse Duke at the moment, because Ultimate Sniper's in the paddock, was racing in a rating 85, would he win? Not automatically. No. So that's surely got to be the top end for those horses. But we could talk forever about handicapping systems and rating systems.
We could. We haven't got that long because we need to get to the Country Cups final in Vintage Cheddar. Alistair Black's done a very good job with this horse. Sitting in the trail here was dead set bolting. It's been a good balance of winners. Forgotten Highway and Smokin' By with the Mitchell Kerr pair that gave this horse a start, but you give a nice horse a run like he got and he'll do this to you.
And when I bet at Ascot Park, Greg, I love to be on horses who are on the speed because it's a track where once they get rolling, gee, it's hard to come from the back. In a pacing race, the trotters can do it often because obviously with the handicaps often in the trotters races, you're a really good horse coming from off the speed, but in the pacing races, God, it's hard to come from back in the field with a good race.
He's won over 50,000 now. Doing a job, isn't he?
And again, a horse who they have now a different type of Country Cup circuit. In the south next year, I reckon he's going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, he ended up finishing second behind Sagwitch, who has had a wonderful campaign, and Smokin' By was third. And that wraps up the Country Cup points and competitions for the season. Now, whilst they were all good races, the big talk out of Southland has been about this horse, You May Collect, and he won again, 4 from 4. In saying that, Michael, the field he beat here, he should beat them up, and his overall time of just under 2:42, well, that's stock standard for any horse in this grade, really.
Yeah, he's obviously very, very good. Now, this is his 4th start, and he's winning it like an open class horse. There's no doubt he's an open class horse if he holds together. That's just a certainty. But it's also important to have some perspective. I mean, is he any better than Spankum or Turn It Up or The Fixer or whatever else you want to say? I mean, there's a long way to go before that's proven. So I hope he gets there, and I'd love him to win the New Zealand Cup. I would love him to win the Kaikoura Cup. I would love to see Southland's colours win a really big race.
But realistically, this season, he'll be at the Cup Carnival, but seriously, in the New Zealand Cup, it's a long bow. I know it's not as hard to be in it now, but he'll be only at his start probably 7, 8, maybe 9 at absolute tops, and he's a 6-year-old, he will be, and he's already had tendon injuries twice.
Look, I'm thrilled for the connections that they've got a horse this good, but in the modern world we live in, and it doesn't matter whether it's cricket or footy or soccer, it doesn't matter what it is, people will naturally get carried away, and straight after the race on social media, he's the new super horse. But there's some pretty good horses in the country, and he's not as good as them yet. And when he's proven that. But one thing I've learnt doing this job for a long time, Greg, is this: if you're the person who says no, he won't win the New Zealand Cup, then you hate you make leg. You hate him, and that's not what it's about. That's not true. Some perspective is sometimes good. Is he better than Lazarus? No, he's not. But maybe he will be one day, and that's the opportunity to prove. And I hope he wins a New Zealand Cup. It's a great story if he does. But perspective is a funny thing in harness racing, and it comes from emotion. Social media comes from emotion. They see something,
'cause it's instant.
They're excited, and then they want to have. And the next day you go, is he any better than the horses I mentioned before, Turn It Up or Spankum?
Or Chase Auckland?
Spankum won a Miracle Mile a couple of starts ago. So look, I hope he ends up with them, and we'll find out.
Let's hear from his co-trainer and driver, and Kirsten Barclay. Of course, Kirsten and Tank Ellis, they had 4 winners on the day.
Well, Kirsten, big day on 3 fronts. First of all, Wee Man Trouble into the jewels. That must have been a satisfying moment.
Yeah, really good. He's been a bit naughty with the galloping lately, but when he puts it together, he's a pretty tidy wee horse. So no, really a real thrill to get one qualified for the jewels. We'll
talk about Paddy Proudfoot before we get to this fella behind you, but Paddy looks like he's got a wee bit to learn, but a big motor there.
Yeah, he's pretty green. He still does a few things wrong, but he does have a really good motor and he's got a good turn of foot, so it should carry him a wee way.
What do you got planned for Paddy Proudfoot going forward?
In the fortnight, I think there's a nugget final down here, so that'll be his next game.
And this horse, well, we could use as many superlatives as we want. It's hair on the back of your neck kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just, like, I still just don't believe it when you come in and you hear the times that you've run and he's just done everything so easy. Like today, I felt like I gave him a really good ease up, but he just gets over the ground so well, and I really don't know what to say about him. He just does everything you ask of him and more, he's pretty cool.
Could we see him in the New Zealand Cup in November?
That is the ultimate goal, to try and get him qualified for the Cup, because without sounding cocky, I think he would fit it with the best horses. He's got speed and he can stay, so yeah, that's our ultimate goal, would be to try and get there, and if not, there's the junior free-for-all, so definitely you'll be there on Tuesday, hopefully, everything going well, but yeah, that is a long-term goal.
Okay, what about the next couple of weeks? Are we going to see him again, or is it a case of going for a spell?
I haven't confirmed with the owners, but we want to turn him out for 4 weeks now and bring him in on the 1st of June and just give him a nice long slow build up. So get him to the paddock sound off this prep is the priority. So he's done enough, so I think, yeah.
Well, you can tell by Kirsten's reaction there, she holds no fear with this horse at all. Chuckles won the first race as well, as long as those other 2 horses that Matt talked to her about. She's wrapped in them.
And she was realistic about it too. She said the junior free-for-all is another option. I hope he makes the New Zealand Cup. It's a real X factor, and it's something different from the All-Stars horses, which will be really cool. Where do you rank him? If you raced every horse in New Zealand in a neutral race, 2,400 metres, Ashburton standing start, where does he sit at the moment in your mental rankings? Like, if you put him in the Ashburton Flying Stakes type race, all the good horses in New Zealand were in it this Saturday, where would he be in the favouritism?
Oh, in favouritism?
Or in your rankings in your head?
To be honest, Michael, I think it's too far-fetched to start trying to predict where he sits, because he hasn't started against any of these other horses.
But I'm saying there's been some hyperbole about that. So where would you put him? In an imaginary race?
Well, he'd have to make the field for a start, but let's say he did. Let's say there's 10 in the Ashburton Flying Stakes. He might be 6th or 7th at the moment. He could go up that pecking order very quickly.
Yep.
And judging by what Kirsten's saying, very, very quickly. But at the end of the day, he hasn't lined up against any of those horses yet. The mindset I go back to is Friday night. If he sat outside Spankham with Turn It Up on his back, Chase Auckland, Hale Christian, any of those types of horses, okay, Hale might not be in their level, but you know what I mean, would he have been able to beat them? Well, Kirsten thinks he would and is hoping that he would. I'm not so convinced yet. I think he could, but you can't say he would. What do you think?
No, I don't think he would have, but we'll find out. As I said, it's an interesting one because these days in the modern world, people have extreme opinions. It's unbelievable, it's the greatest of all time. The word GOAT is one of the most overused words in the world. And he might end up being a mainland banner who gets to the New Zealand Cup on a skinny prep and wins it. And as I said, I hope he does. This is my job to write these sort of stories. It'll be fascinating. But I also have to, as someone who's done this for such a long time, have some perspective, because to think that he is already a pacing great is
unrealistic.
Well, it's rude to Al Sue and I'm the Mighty Quinn and Black's a Fake, and it's rude to the horse who just went to North America last year and paced 146 and change. So I'm tempering my expectations on the horse because he doesn't deserve to have that pressure on him, Greg. Yet.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't deserve to be $18 for the New Zealand Cup.
No, he's rather short in that regard. Now, some sad news coming out. One of the favourite people in Northern Harness Racing, whilst he hasn't trained for a wee while, few wouldn't have known the name Clive Herbert.
What a great guy Clive was. Now, he trained a horse called Medal Mickey, who was a good horse, but he trained for a while David Moss. David Moss was with the Coxes in Southland, then spent a lot of time with Robert Cameron. Then he would come north and race for Clive. And Clive was a New Zealand cycling rep, just a really good guy, full of life and always on for a chat, and he suited David Moss. He would take him to Australia, and the Aussies love all that stuff, and he'd had the big quotes. Here he is at the Valley. This is Moonee Valley. This was the night he got called Monster Moss. That's him in Herbie's colours, the white with the blue, for Maurice McKendry. This was actually the first ever night I went to the races at Moonee Valley, and he wasn't suited by this at all. His big old butt was wobbling around in the cart because he just didn't like the small track. But he still won, and he won a bunch of other races, a lot of them for Robert Cameron. I don't think you should ever remember trainers for horses, Greg, because Clive Herbert was far more interesting than just the horses.
Well, he trained over 140 winners. I was actually talking to Tony Shaw the other day. He worked for him for a couple of years, and he said he was an amazing guy. He said he'd come in with a horse like David Moss and go, I think we'll just the head check one hole, and he'd take him back out and he'd say, oh, he trotted superb with that. You know, he said he just loved having a yarn, but he said really, really good horseman. Of course, father of Ricky, who he trained with at one stage as well, the all-white soccer great and coach.
Just a good guy, the sort of people you need in the stabling area, so it's not so vanilla and it's not all the same answers. Different people. He's a fair bit of Aussie about him, which I always like. So Clive, to Ricky and the family and all the extended family of the Herberts, we will miss the old man too.
And he'll be farewelled on Friday, so head along to that in Parnell, not far from where we are here. Short break for us. When we come back, we'll be in the home straight. This is your box seat. Busy week ahead, harness racing wise. Second of 2 days, of course, this week for Manawatu. $25,000 pick six there. 5:05 start time. 8 races Thursday night. Alexandra Park. 4 Group 1s. 6:17 for the 9 race card. We've got a $25,000 pick six there as well. Craig Thompson, Michael Guerin and myself will be on track. Addington Raceway, 3:36 the start time. Of course, it is a rugby match being played, Crusaders Sharks, so they'll be looking to work around that. 175,000 the listed PGG rights in New Zealand yearling sales, 2-year-old final. Invercargill Saturday, 11:50 the start time there. 9 races on the Medicoat of 7, and Rangiora on Sunday. 10 races starting at 11:45. Gives us a chance to have a look at that 2-year-old open race. And of course, we get to see Smooth Deal going around in that. But
the market for this is going to be really interesting, and the market isn't out yet because you can't be taking silly short odds about him because he's been beaten a couple of times. One Chains has suggested he's a pretty good horse, so is William Wallace.
Flying even better.
Exactly, bad to the bones, a good horse. And above and beyond. There's enough there to suggest Smooth Deal can't be silly odds, but the Purden Rasmussen horses tend to win this race. He's bad to the bone.
I like this horse. Gee, he covers the ground nicely.
Yeah, I like him too. As I said, there's enough there to find reasons to back other horses, but post-race, Greg, you might say to yourself, oh, the All-Stars won it again, I should have backed it. So, hey, we'll see what the market does, and I'll be market-driven. If they put him up $1.60, I might have a crack. They might put him up $1.25, in which case I won't.
You talked about One Change and his performance to win the Welcome Stakes. He's 2 from 2 now, and Virgil, of course, was in this, and he's now come out and won the Diamond Creek Classic last weekend. And yeah, I think there's enough to suggest that he'll, be pretty hard to beat.
I think Smooth Deal's the best of them. I just do, but I can't take short odds. It's a totally market-driven race. Whereas if you get the right odds, you can back him with some confidence. Good to see it a little bit earlier, and good to see Alexandra Park and Annington working together, even though it's mainly because of the footy. Woodlands runners this week, obviously Speeding Spurs, probably their absolute flagship, but they've got some other pretty good ones. Spankham and Jesse Duke. Spankham, by the way, if he happened to win this week, could he actually end up being the horse of the year? And of course, they've got that favourite Smooth Deal in the big race down to at Addington Greg.
Well, both horse of the year, trot of the year and pace of the year, they're all potentially on the line Friday
Very much
night.
so. Talking about Woodlands, they're taking a whole bunch of horses to Karaka on Monday, and this sale has been embellished by the fact that 3 horses who went through the ring at the sales, but there's been a complication from the yearling sale, are coming back to be sold here, Greg. So, but from Woodlands' point of view, they sell serious horses here. They don't sell the ones they can't get rid of. They sell Sweet Loos and Better's Delights and American Ideals, Greg. That sale is going to be interesting because there's a really good pinhooking opportunities there.
Also interesting was the sale held on Monday in the south. It was a dual code sale with the thoroughbreds as well. What about the fact that Jack Harrington, Gavin Smith, David Butt all purchased thoroughbreds? So yeah, a little bit of interest there too. The boys dipping their toe, not for the first time.
No, and if you've got a property and you have the opportunity and the time to do it, then you're upskilling yourself. Well done to them. Good luck to all of them involved.
What about bets of the week? You got one?
I like 888. I like him in a race this week. I hate backing horses from wide barrier draws over 1,700 metres, but I just think he's good enough to win this when you consider the horses he's been racing recently.
Brent Mangos gave us a huge push towards Sonny's Little Gestic. He basically bagged himself for his drive. He won't be making that same mistake in a race he should be winning, race number 9.
Next week's show, we've got some really interesting things for you, including Greg going in and doing a story on blood spinning. You may know nothing about it. I know a little bit about it. You know a little bit more.
Wee bit.
We're going to find out a lot more from some experts about that. And I pay a debt. I'm off to do some lawn mowing next week, Gregory, after my big mouth once again got me in trouble.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing that, and I'm certainly looking forward to doing that blood spinning story. We'll find some information that you probably won't know. Right, that's it for us, the Box Heap. Hope you've got some information there to get involved this week. Enjoy your harness racing week ahead.